No.
I mean, when it works, I can tell why it worked, but when it's broken, I can't tell why it's broken. It hurts my head a little bit. So I've got a project that requires a lot of charts, and I've just been, trial and error getting the darn things to work, and then when it works, I go, well, why didn't I do that first? That seems right,
When I do charts, I set a lot of time aside just to manage with charts. I don't.
Okay. I'm not alone. All right. Of course, I got pretty good back in the pre-chart days in convincing my clients that they didn't need charts. So that's still my go-to. Like, charts are for people who don't want to see the real data. I still feel that way about charts. But yeah, I think you heard me say I turned away some consulting work this afternoon because you wanted help with charts. I'm like, I'm no better at it than you are. I can't get this right. It's annoying. Thankfully, not a lot of questions on the certification exam about charts. Right. You watch. I've said that now, and the FileMaker 16 will have like 10 questions on it, and it'll blow the whole thing.
Oh, wow. So, let's see.
This is a small crowd. Did you get a lot of RSVPs, Wayne?
No. Actually,
I wonder why.
I think James Lord may have been the only one that RSVP'd.
Oh, here comes Jesse.
What happens when you're semi-retired?
Yeah. Well, thanks for always being there for us, James.
I didn't even RSVP though, so I'm still here.
Right. I see we have a Jesse here. What Jesse is that?
Hey guys, it's Jesse Barnum from 360 Works. How are you?
I thought it might be. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
Oh man.
Hey.
You would show up tonight while I talk about plugins of all things. That's just.
This is actually the first time I've ever gotten an invitation, I think.
Wow.
Oh.
Always got to keep everybody on the toes.
I know you've talked to me before about doing it, but this is the first time I actually got a go-to-meeting invite, and I was like, all right, I'm at home tonight on time.
Wow.
Right. So doesn't it figure, Jason? You decide to do a presentation on plugins, and like the plugin god joins us. So
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's just perfect. No pressure.
No pressure, Jason. No pressure at all.
All right. Now, actually, I need to go edit my slide deck and take out all the Jesse jokes. So you guys just hang out and talk for a few minutes. I have to get rid of that.
Wow. We were going to talk about the Supermaster Greatest plugin, and
How did you find out the next plugin name? How did
we just put it in a 360 Works plugin name generator, and that's what came out.
the Uber Super.
Yeah.
Yes, Uber Super, even better. We figured that's the one after next.
Yeah, Jesse, Chris and I were looking over this stuff for this prezo this week, and I was trying to remember when that was. You got some award. You were like, oh, you were getting called up on stage at DEF CON. It was, it's a big deal. It was awesome. You, of course, had done something amazing. You're getting recognized for it, and whoever was, announcing was totally giving you a hard time about your plugin names. I'm like, that's about the. Yeah, it was okay. No, no surprise there, but I'm like, that's like the most tongue-in-cheek, presentation of an award I've ever seen. I'm like, gosh. But fantastic names, yeah.
I actually wrote a little parody article of his thing. I had written up God, I forgot what it was. I had written up some horrible acronym of like parodying his thing, and I was going to send it to him, and I had it all written. I was like, no, I'm not going to send that.
That was pretty funny. So
that reminds me, Jason and I at one point talked about trying to work up a video skit of Andy LeCates presenting at DevCon saying how the next version of FileMaker was going to fix the import dialog. And when he said that, we were just going to cut to like him getting chased through the streets like the Beatles and like grown men throwing their underwear up on stage. You know? Ah! Thank God you finally fixed that, you know? But for similar reasons, we decided, well, maybe we better not do that. It needs a lot of people to have the right sense of humor.
I think Andy's got a pretty, he's pretty tolerant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, really, I'd just be glad if they'd fix the import dialogue, really.
What do you not like about the import dialogue? I asked partly because we modeled some of our own UI and MirrorSync on the import dialogue, so maybe we picked the wrong thing.
It's the field matching part of it. You know, it's great if you've got 10 fields in your table.
Okay.
But, oh my goodness, and especially on Windows. From what I understand on Mac, the dragging of fields goes faster. Yeah,
But
where we run into imports more often than not is migrating from old systems where, you know, the legacy system has 4,000 fields in the same table.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And of course, the field we want to import has to go way to the bottom.
Right. And of course, their creation order, so they have to drag it all the way down, right?
Yeah, and in Windows you have to drag it down and then wiggle your mouse while it goes down to make it go at any decent speed.
You know what's really ironic and funny about that? I didn't know that about Windows, but on MirrorSync, you know, the UI for MirrorSync is in Java. We ran into that exact same problem, but it was only on Mac. On Windows, the drag and drop works fine, but on Mac you have to jiggle the mouse, just like you're talking about. So we wound up fixing it. We wrote our own kind of hack to work around it, and now they both work the same. But it's funny.
I would just love to see drop down with type ahead on both sides.
Yeah, just create pairs. You know, just let me create a list of pairs. I mean, in fact, we do that for like data mapping for use with like
for your plugin, actually.
Yeah, solutions with Scribe.
And Scribe.
Yeah, where you have to map field names to document field names and stuff like that. It's not really that hard, you know. It goes pretty quick.
Right.
So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, especially, you know, the times when you have, you know, 4,000 fields in a table, which I will say is always legacy. We don't do that. But also when you're trying to bring in just 2 or 3 fields, you know, even in a normal size table, it's like, really, I got to drag through all the fields just to get the 2 that I want.
Oh,
You know?
right. Yeah.
Let me just pick them.
Yeah. That makes sense. I never deal with legacy stuff that huge, so I haven't really noticed that problem before, but I can see how that would be just maddening.
Yeah, Jason's been in migration hell for about 2 or 3 weeks. We got a couple of projects. He's trying to bring in some really monstrous legacy tables that are just violate normal forms that, like, they didn't even give a number to because they're so obvious. Like, why would you do this?
No, surely no one would do that. We don't need to mention that in normal format.
Were they written by FileMaker developers or by somebody who doesn't know from a hole in the ground?
The latter.
Yeah,
I don't think either one was built by a professional. You know. Oh, that sounds pretentious, but I mean, they were written by citizens.
You gotta have some standard, buddy.
Yeah. To give them credit, I mean, when you're looking at these legacy systems, you can almost tell their own learning process, you know, like there'll be some tables that, like, they put this field in this table because that's what table they were looking at the time, you know, and then they start to get the hang of it, which is good, except now it's not only wrong, it's inconsistent. So you can't figure out where things are going to be or what they're going to be called. So.
Yeah, that one of the solutions has the primary table is called table. So even making notes about my migration when I'm migrating from the table, it's like when I start making my own comments about it, it's hard to follow because I can't, you know. So,
the other fun is when they use the name because it'll pop up, you know, on your screen. They name it that way. That one's always fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially when they put periods and dots and other things in there.
One of our clients that he's been with us for like 2 decades. He's a good friend and everything, and he's a smart guy otherwise. But when I first met him, he had started building his own solution for property management, and this is where he's renting out apartments. And I said, well, where are your apartments? What's the name of that table? Oh, that's in the calendars. I said, calendar? Why is it calendar? He said, well, I took the template from FileMaker. It was like, yeah, I give up. We're building you a new system.
Others. All right. Well, I guess it looks like a couple more folks have joined. Jason Bork, welcome back. Nice to see you here again. And of course, Jesse, geez, man, really, that's very exciting that you've come. So we're really, really happy to have you. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, I mean, feel free to send
me. Thank you for
yeah, of course. Feel free to tell any of your guys to show. We'd love to hear from them. They're always great to work with. And yeah, if any of you guys out there have not worked with any of the 360works folks, it's a great experience. We always we use a ton of their plugins, as you'll hear soon. And yeah, they're always really extremely helpful and great support and great guys all around. So I'll make a point to.
I can't get any of my guys to show up for our Atlanta meeting, so I really don't think that.
Well, it says the drive is shorter to our meeting, though, so you don't have.
That's true. That is true.
But yeah, but that'd be great anyway. So thanks again, Jesse. And yeah, I guess if you ever do make it to DevCon, like I said, the 360works guys are really cool. You should go look them up and give them the props they deserve. They do a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I guess then if we're through yakking, we'll get started in this thing. And like I said, now that I'm probably going to be really nervous talking about plugins with Jesse in the room, but no, really, I'm not going to talk about anything to do with making plugins. This really is a kind of just a look into using plugins, as a developer and FileMaker, and kind of the use cases that we go through as kind of consumers and users of these things that make FileMaker do other stuff. So so with that, I guess we'll just jump right in. Like I said, we have been recording, so just in case you weren't aware, we do record these meetings so that they can be watched again later and that kind of thing. So if you want a recording or want to get a hold of it and that sort of thing, we post this stuff at the end, so you can take a look at that. So again, yeah, managing plugins and FileMaker solutions. So again, not about building a plugin. We're not, that's certainly outside our wheelhouse. We definitely go to the experts for that kind of thing when we need help. But this is about using plugins to make expand the functionality that the FileMaker offers. And I think in general we try as we may to use all FileMaker native features, just because it's it's easier to handle. The things that are inside the FileMaker product, its native features are generally they're pretty ironclad. Pretty dependable kind of thing. So when it comes to a gap that's arisen where you have you need a solution that has to do something that FileMaker just doesn't do yet or at all or something like that, then you got to look outside. So if you've never worked with plugins at all, you really don't know much about that whole part of things, then I'm afraid I may move pretty fast, because I don't want to spend a ton of time on just the very, very basics of using plugins in FileMaker, because what I really want to do is concentrate on how to best kind of work with plugins, especially when you are like us, managing many live solutions across many different organizations. So we're not like in the room with our clients ever, and we have dozens and dozens of solutions that are out there in use. So we're managing, supporting them all remotely. So we can't walk over and open up folders and click on files and drag and drop stuff at least not very easily. We do some of that stuff with GoToMeeting, but certainly over the years, as we've built up solutions and had to deploy one or more, oftentimes it's several plugins in a given solution, we kind of found the need that we had to have some kind of setup, some kind of mechanism, so that we could automate some of the plugin installation and updates and things like that. And And so this sort of, solution that I'm going to demonstrate later on here kind of grew out of that necessity, where we just, started off small, realized there was a bit of a problem, and started building it, throwing together pieces of this thing one at a time over the years, and from solution to solution. So then finally, I think with our last kind of big rollout of our base solution that we use for pretty much all of our custom projects, we finally went ahead and built in a module for this, just a whole set of features for the management of plugins. And so what I've done is for this exercise is I've gone in and I've scooped that up out of our base solution, and I've kind of put this in a sort of black box setup here, so that we can kind of focus in on that without all the rest of the big complex base solution we have. So at the end here, I've got a file that if you're interested in, you can certainly grab. It's not not ready for sale or anything like that, but if let's suppose if we ever made it to that, it'd be something that we could put up on like the Made for FileMaker site or something like that, just because it is I think deployable, probably with a bit of work to polish it up and make sure we stopped up all the holes. It is a usable solution for this. So in addition to just being here for demonstration, I'm hoping this it can be something that can be useful to other people too. So jumping in the slides, like I said, I want to go pretty quickly through the real basic stuff. So like I mentioned before, a plugin is just simply third-party software. It's something that someone other than FileMaker has written to work with FileMaker. So you literally are just dropping in new functionality, and the way that works in the interface is if the plugin provides new functions, those functions show up in the list of functions in the FileMaker's function list, that kind of thing. So it's pretty intuitive once you're used to using FileMaker's calculation engine and things like that. Using plugins is generally speaking, pretty manageable to get the hang of. So we obviously go to plugins when we're looking for features that FileMaker doesn't come with natively. Historically speaking, I think and Jesse can probably attest to this, that there have been some pretty good plugins out there, and FileMaker I think really tries. I don't know what they try to do, but they seem to eat the best ones over time, right? It's like they do tend to look out there and see what features people are really going after, it would seem, and they tend to eventually build that kind of stuff into the FileMaker solution. So a lot of times, we've gone to great lengths to build FileMaker or build the plugin solutions, and then lo and behold, a year or two later, FileMaker will release a version that kind of does that thing natively. So we have to look at going in and redoing that stuff from time to time. But generally speaking, you got plugins. Plugins are going to basically stand in the gap between something your solution needs to get done and something that FileMaker doesn't necessarily do out of the box there. So let's see. So I've got a couple of examples here, like to get FileMaker to send an HTML formatted email as opposed to just a plain text email. FileMaker does plain text out of the box, but if you want HTML formatting and so on, another big part of that is being able to send multiple attachments at once instead of just a single attachment, which is all FileMaker supports. So email is kind of a big one. We use that pretty heavily ourselves, and file manipulation, so just moving files around on the on the hard drive of a FileMaker user's computer. You'd think that would be in there, right? But they're just no great easy tools for that. So doing file manipulation jobs. There's some plugins out there that will let you, do some editing, that kind of stuff, of photos and things, images and stuff like that. So, we did a solution a while back where, it was like, I think staff members kind of thing. You had to take a photograph when you got your job, and their FileMaker solution would capture that image and store it with their employee profile, and then, print out their badges and all that kind of stuff. So we had a little image plugin going along, manipulation plugin in there to crop the photo down to the right, dimensions and resolution and all that kind of stuff there. So let's see, and watching there. Okay, yeah, Tim, you're dropping some stuff on the side there, so I'll let you guys keep going on that on the side if you want. Let's see. Yep. So another one is communicating with other protocols that FileMaker just doesn't speak that language. So file transfer is a pretty common thing that we've used plugins for. So to be able to take a file from a user and pass it up to a server that isn't part of the FileMaker solution, it's out in the web somewhere or something like that. Web services, Jesse and company over there have I don't know, Jesse, do you still do the web services manager thing? Did that, I haven't tried it in a long time, but
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not actually a plugin. It's a PHP file, so it's more of a server-side service. But we also have, but there's also the Scriptmaster plugin that we use sometimes for integrating with like SOAP or REST web services.
Yeah. So there, I guess that's probably why I got that gray area there, because I know I've done some of that SOAP type web services stuff with Jesse's team there, and they obviously knew more about it than I did. But you see the ticket there. It's like I needed to get FileMaker to talk to this other solution. They had a protocol already laid out. We had to go elsewhere, outside of FileMaker to get it to do the thing. So here's looks like kind of mentioning that integration. Go ahead.
And SOAP, by the way, is one of the things that you still can't do even with the insert from URL command in FileMaker. They finally made it so you could do an HTTP post. But currently, at least in FileMaker 15, you can't set the content type, which if you could do that one thing, then you could actually do SOAP integration without a plugin. But until that, until that's changed, that still is a requirement for dealing with SOAP web services.
Yeah, definitely getting, I think system integrations, to play nice together and not be really brittle is one of the areas that I've spent a lot of time over the years working on different solutions and again consulting with Jesse and his team about that. The idea of web services is that you can kind of have like a pretty loose coupling. In other words, the code that you create to put the two systems together to make them pass data or process information, process data from one system to the other. So take in input, do stuff, give back output. That SOAP protocol, just kind of, there are others, right? I think XML is kind of uses the same kind of framework there, where you kind of, you put your data together in a language or format that some other system can consume and pass things back and forth. But the idea is that it can create a nice loose coupling that doesn't want to fall apart all the time, like some of the more hard-coded type integration work can do. If anything changes on the other end, then suddenly things really go to pieces in your integration. So interesting stuff. Certainly not necessarily our topic tonight, but again, outside the FileMaker wheelhouse, we ended up going off the reservation to get some plugin help there. So QuickBooks is a big one we end up working with a lot of times. Being able to pass financial data or transactional data and stuff like that over to financial systems is a pretty common thing. Integrating with MS Office documents like spreadsheets, Word files, 360works Scribe. We've done a few integrations with that. That tool, really cool tool. If you've never looked at it, it does a ton. And then there's some other things like hardware integration where you can get plugins that will work with like scanners and fax machines, stuff that even telephones on different protocols that I don't know a ton about, but we've kind of brushed around on those things over the years, and so the idea is get FileMaker to do stuff that it doesn't do. Obviously, there's just a kind of a wide open list of possibilities out there for what plugins can do. So there's really just a lot, right? Many times when we get approached to do something and we're by a client and we're kind of puzzled by, well, how would we do that? It's like pretty early step is just go and Google that. There may just be a plugin out there for it for FileMaker. So there are just some interestingly obscure things that have been turned into plugins over the years. So don't hesitate to look. There's just a ton of things available. So again, as we've spent a lot of time doing development and working through this stuff over the years, we've kind of developed a sort of punch list for good plugin choices, and again, it's so fitting that Jesse's here again. Like I said, there are no real jokes about Jesse and 360works, but there are a lot of references to them. So Jesse, you're probably just going to blush the whole time, I guess. So when we look at plugins, and we especially if we've had to find like one of those kind of weird obscure ones that does this weird thing, and some dude made it in Italy in his grandma's basement or something. Like I'm not making that part up. Actually, there was a guy who wrote a scanner plugin that we used once that was like that. We look for great documentation, like it really needs to be done. When you get out in the weeds, when you're working with a plugin and things aren't doing what you think they need to do, or you can't figure out how to deal with the results you're getting or process the errors that are coming up, having that documentation that has really been thoughtfully put together is really, really critical. Huge time saver. When things are starting to unravel on you, you really want that. So checking it out to make sure that the documentation's good and consistent and thorough is a big deal. So that's definitely a must-have. And then a willing support team. So the folks who have actually built who've actually done the plugin work and built the tool are there and available to support you is just sometimes irreplaceable. You just can't you can't go on at certain points when things just aren't working the way that you think that that they oughta, and you don't know how to get out of there, right? You've exhausted your ability to troubleshoot. Being able to give these folks a call and have them help you out of a bind is a big deal. So certainly they're awfully generous when they do that, and we over the years have gotten more and more able to kind of frame those discussions so that they're quick and we're not eating their time up, and we've even paid for support because I think it is really that valuable. But Jesse and his team are definitely great guys, and they have been so very helpful over the years, just ready to jump on screen and help us out whenever we got something that didn't seem like it was working. And I think I don't know, I think Jesse, I may have nearly made Val quit when you guys were still on Super Container 1 back in, I don't know, 2005 or something like that, when I think, because we were doing some weird stuff that you guys hadn't really tried doing yet, and Val was like, yeah, I think it'll do that. Let's see if it does that. It turned out it did.
That's always the fun stuff as well.
Yeah. It turned out it did do that, but only after a lot of fixing. So yeah, so they're so those guys are great. Again, I can't say that enough. But definitely, we've worked with other companies that have also got great support, and it's just that important because, like I said, you're generally speaking when you're working on something, it's pretty it's outside the norm anyway. This is development that you as a FileMaker developer don't do all the time, and it's not it's not the wide part of the road. So having good help on hand is definitely key.
I've mentioned to anybody who answers the phone at 360 Works that I'm just amazed they haven't screened their calls yet.
That is true, yeah. So, they still take calls from Extenstech, which is remarkable.
Right? Anytime I say my name, I swear I hear a little bit of a pause, and then I get put on hold. I figure they're like playing rock, paper, scissors. Like, who's going to deal with Chris this time?
There are actually a couple people that it's like when we see the name on caller ID, everyone kind of chuckles and argues about who's going to answer the phone. But trust me, you are so far from that end of the list. Don't worry.
Really? Oh, I would have totally thought I was on that list because I always feel like I call with like the thing you never planned for that plugin to do in the first place.
Well, that's a good reason to call.
I suppose. Yeah. But still, I always feel bad. They're like, like Jason said, like, I don't know if it does that, actually.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, another, who else? Will was giving us some, well, theoretically, yeah, I think it oughta, but no promises.
The worst support calls are the ones where they describe the problem. We immediately ask them, okay, it sounds like such and such might be the problem. And then they'll like say, okay, I just checked and that's not it. And then like an hour later, we finally screen share with them. And we look, and the first thing we said at the beginning of the call was like, checked or unchecked. And we're like, we asked you that at the very beginning of the call. So that, yeah, no, nothing, your calls are never like that. Your questions are always good questions about complicated things, which is a good reason to call.
Right.
So there you go.
See,
yeah.
now
like
I'm blushing.
Right? Yeah. Willing support. So yeah, thanks again, Jesse. We probably owe you a lot on that. this now not necessarily from the support team, right? But consistent and sensible feedback from the plugin itself. I suppose getting consistent and sensible feedback from the support team is probably also important, but not what I meant here. The idea that the plugin will kind of behave itself consistently is really critical, because like I said, we have ended up working with some stuff that was, I would say, kind of slapdash a little bit. They got pretty far through building it, and then they kind of threw the rest together pretty quickly to kind of get it out the door. And you can tell because the error reporting is inconsistent. Again, the documentation is not very good. Sometimes it does something when you're successful, and other times it does something else when you've successfully executed a plugin, a call. So being able to work with tools that don't really work all that consistently is very, very much more challenging, that kind of thing. So that's tough to vet from the get-go when you're picking the plugin, but certainly, like I said, over time you sort of learn who to trust as opposed to necessarily which plugins to use. So like I said, we do use a ton of 360works plugins because, again, they really do meet all these things. So so here's just ideas I mentioned here. So error handling and what results your functions return and formatting. So here like I said, if you go to developers, 360works at the top of the list there, and we use their logo without permission. Boy, is that embarrassing. But also productive computing has done some great work over the years, and we use their stuff. Like so, they do the Outlook manipulator, or the Fmpug it's called. Also the Fmpug for QuickBooks and Outlook manipulators. Another one that we put through the ringer once many years ago. Actually, we did a full Outlook integration for contacts and email and tasks and Chris, what else do we get in there? Kitchen sinks, but it was a full two-way sync between Outlook and FileMaker, a FileMaker contact management solution. So we lived on the phone with productive computing for a while over that one. So again, like I said, good guys.
And we decided to never ever do that again.
Yeah, we've sworn that off since. So we finished it. It did work. It did do something, but I don't know that anyone ever ended up using it because it was so difficult to actually to interpret the conflict resolution. So how like sometimes it doesn't really do it much anymore. Google must be way smarter than us. But back in the day when you'd sync like your phone with your webmail or something like that to get your contacts right, it would pop up and dialogue you about conflicts, like such and such has changed on your webmail contact list, but you've got a different change over here on your phone's contact list. Which one should win? That kind of thing. So as we were trying to synchronize two-way sync, lots and lots of tables with lots and lots of data where changes and conflicts come up routinely, maybe hundreds of times in the course of a synchronization. It was just really tough to work with. So lesson learned there, right? Not all ideas are good ideas, but the plugin did do the thing at the end of the day. All right, so here again are our favorite plugins that we use quite a bit here. Scriptmaster and Email from 360works both go in pretty much every one of our solutions that we roll out these days. We just have a few things in there that are part of our base system that you just can't do in FileMaker. So we've got a email, HTML email, for instance, being one of them. And Scriptmaster is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of plugins that if it doesn't already do a certain thing, you can always give the folks at 360works a call, and they will usually come up with a way to get Scriptmaster to do the thing that you figured out it couldn't do yet. So that's a deep tool, and Jesse and those guys have made that thing really, really capable. I think it actually will build you real plugins nowadays. You can design functions in Scriptmaster and then have it spin off like individual plugin files that contain just the functions that you wanted. So that one is just really awesome, indispensable. Like I said, we solve lots of problems with that one.
Scriptmaster, by the way, I'll just jump in for 1 second and mention that Scriptmaster is a little bit. It's like if the SmartPill plugin. I don't know if that's still around anymore, but SmartPill let you write your own functions in PHP essentially, and Scriptmaster is kind of the same thing for Java. So if you, it comes with a bunch of pre-built modules. But if anyone is interested in experimenting a little bit with Java, technically the language is Groovy, which is a language that's very, very similar to Java. If anyone wanted to experiment with writing their own Java code, you can do that in Scriptmaster as well. So it can do things that it doesn't come with necessarily out of the box.
Yeah, super cool. So I think, like I said, we've ended
or
up.
if you're lazy like me, you can call Jesse.
Yeah,
That's
like
right,
you said,
too.
very reasonable rates.
And just pay him some money and just go here, make that happen.
Yeah, we needed one of these, you know, and yeah, I think from time to time, I think, you know, we've had you guys make us custom Scriptmaster functions that you guys have eventually rolled into real plugins yourselves. They've gone on sale.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, so really like a, you know, it's very cool little platform in and of itself, Scriptmaster. So, you know, again, if you haven't spent time on that one, it's interesting to look into. But deep, like I said. So I mean, you know, you can be a plugin developer with just Scriptmasters.
And don't forget free.
Yeah, actually, that's probably a pretty.
Oh my God, that is so awesome.
Yeah, still not
a plugin that powerful that's free. I mean, come on.
Yeah, still not sure how you guys eat over there, Jesse. That's pretty crazy. But anyway, yeah,
quiet. He'll charge for it.
Right. All right. So the Scribe plugin again, I mentioned for 360 Works. Before that one, pretty limited description here. We have used it to do, you know, integration with Microsoft Office documents and PDF integration. So this one's really cool because it lets us do some pretty powerful things through FileMaker for our clients who, you know, need to produce a lot of really I want to say kind of really specific documents, right? The documents have a lot of very specific rules and constraints to them. A lot of times the FileMaker solutions are built to produce like governmental documents, things like that the government, you know, the government says you must, this document, you know, here's our version of this form, right? And you have to fill that out each time you want to do a X thing. And so with FileMaker, we can design that form again, you know, and kind of fill it out with FileMaker. But where the constraints get really specific, and you know, they say, well, this is not an authentic copy or some such, right? You have to use our PDF. We've been able to take Scribe and build solutions in FileMaker that will take the data out of a FileMaker solution, you know, go to the right fields and the right tables, and park that data into a PDF, save it off, and you know, off they go. So companies who are, you know, spending tons of time, you know, ending up having to manually fill out these forms for their, you know, for their clients or for, you know, for whatever process they had, we've been able to automate that stuff, and you know, basically they just do everything with button clicks or shoot server side on some things like that. So so Scribe, again, really powerful, able to you know, read data from and pass data into a lot of different file formats. You know, Word being a big one. That was kind of a big breakthrough to be able to read and write from Word to Word. Spreadsheets as well, which has led to some interesting solutions we've created. Where kind of created a FileMaker routine to like handcraft a really strangely formatted Excel report, just because the client was like, you know, it really just has to be this crazy table format that, you know, doesn't really behave like normal tables and all that kind of stuff. So Jesse and team helped us figure out how to, like, you know, create this really pretty considerable just method overall for moving data from the FileMaker solution into a spreadsheet over and over again, because it was a report they like to run periodically. So again, powerful, very cool plugin, works very well. And I mentioned Fmpug from Productive Computing down there for QuickBooks integration. So all right, so getting into kind of working with plugins now. The you know, kind of you start up, you're gonna you decide you need to use a plugin. You know, the first move is to like just install the thing. I got to get the plugin turned on my FileMaker so I can, you know, I can start working with it as a developer. So manual installation is, you know, kind of the go-to at the beginning. It really was. I think it was the only way to install your plugins back in the day. And then, I don't know, somewhere along FileMaker, Jesse help me here, so, maybe 7 or 8 or something like that. I don't know if it existed before that, but you could set your plugins up to be distributed by the FileMaker server application. So you can kind of load them up on there and write scripts that would download copies of plugins from the server. It was pretty cantankerous.
Yeah, that's actually, it's existed for a long time, like since 5.5 or 6 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was in version 12, I think, that they added that install from container, which made it a lot easier than it used to be.
Yeah, because we...
Yeah, I remember doing it back in, you know, FileMaker 5 days, but it was so hard to use, you might as well skip it. So.
Yeah, they actually shipped a plugin from FileMaker called the Auto Update plugin. It had its own custom functions to install other plugins.
Yeah,
that is right. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I had forgotten about that.
I think it was harder than manual installation back then.
Yeah, it was really a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it really was something. And I think the only times we ended up trying to deploy that is where we had, you know, these sort of major, you know, kind of very geographically distributed client base, that kind of thing, where, you know, we had people who'd never seen each other using the system, and there was just no reliable way to support, you know, manual installation and manual updates and things like that. So we did actually go down that path and write the stuff with the, again, as Jesse points out, I'd forgotten about that, FileMaker's own custom plugin that they wrote for updating plugins. It was a little confusing. It was like, you know, kissing your cousin or something. But yeah, the plugin for plugins. So kind of like the table, but that was some of our early efforts to kind of create a strategy, a framework around managing plugins. Involved working with those things. What was it? It's a .tar file. Anybody in the audience besides Jesse know what a .tar file is? It's a kind of archive, or, you know, like a compressed file, like a zip folder, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. That's that file type that I have to find somebody with a Mac to make.
Yeah. So for Mac, for Mac servers, you had to zip up your plugin in this thing called a tar file, and you couldn't. There weren't really any applications to do it, so you had to be able to, like, you had to know the command line type things to do it in the terminal on Mac. So you really got very programmery for those of us who were, you know, hopelessly FileMakery. And so, boy, it was hard. That's all I can say. Is it was always tough to get that to work just right, and then, like I said, to update it was even more difficult. If you had, you know, a new version of the plugin comes out, I've got to make my new tar file. I got to put it in the right folders on the server. I've got to label it just so, you know, name the folders just right. Otherwise, things will fall to pieces. And boy, it was a tough time. So yeah, those were the bad old days, and they've gotten a bit better now. So like I said, manual installation in terms of the client, you know, your FileMaker client. So on the machine where your FileMaker Pro is running. Figuring out, you know, where do I put my plugin? It's kind of a, you know, kind of a thing, right? So I've essentially given up trying to remember. So I just Google it. So this is the let me Google that for you. Whatever this is called, I don't know. It's probably an internet meme or something like that. But I just Google every time, no matter what, because I can't remember where they are on Mac. And then I can't remember where it is on Windows if I've been working on Mac for a while. So just keep that bookmark to know where are the plugin folders for your operating system. It doesn't help that FileMaker lets you put them in more than one place either. So like I said, the water's muddied right away. So then finally, FileMaker to the rescue. They did do this thing where if you go into File, and I'll do this when I bring up my demo, but if you go into the Edit Preferences dialog in FileMaker, there's now a button to expose the plugin folder. So FileMaker has finally helped us out, and we'll actually open the plugin folder where it's installing plugins for you. Super helpful. Thanks for doing that, guys. So then, so manual installation, like I said, hopefully I've made it clear that was awful, and that it's really tough to do at the best of times, because, you know, like I said, plugins can be installed inside the FileMaker application folder structure. They can be installed in the operating system users folders structure. They get spread around, you know, pretty liberally. So it's always been a little bit challenging to kind of track the stuff down. Like when I'm trying to find out, you know, where's the plugin, so I can figure out which version it is, or replace a version, that kind of thing. Knowing where to get the things has been awful. So kind of, you know, moving beyond the manual installation and management methodology here. the golden standard would be to have an automated installation, right? So FileMaker, like Jesse said, with version 12, gave us a tool finally for installing a plugin file that's stored in a container field. So you can create a field in your database somewhere in the table that store the plugin file that you want installed, or files if you want to do it across platforms and that sort of thing. And then you just run a script step against that field that will actually put the plugin file in the right place according to FileMaker. So that was a big one. So you got the install plugin file script step now. So this really kind of opened up the way. And while we were able to do this, achieve this before with the whole, server side, storage of the plugin files and the FileMaker's auto update plugin, the whole architecture there. This stuff was possible. It was just really clunky, very hard. So the install plugin file script step really opened this up, and in fact, it was in version 12. As soon as they gave us that we went ahead and built up this whole structure for the very first time. So we kind of jumped right on that as soon as it came out. And then that's as far as FileMaker went. So there are basically no more tools in FileMaker for managing plugins. So I guess they decided that was enough. But there's a ton of stuff that you have to do when you're trying to manage a plugin. There are lots of other things that need to get done. Obviously, this one's enough. We get by with it. The rest of it is handled with scripting and things like that. But there are many other concerns, and so, like I said, there's quite a lot that doesn't really. There's no manual to speak of for how to do this. Even the FileMaker working with plugins documentation is pretty thin when it comes to just how do you pull this off, and how do you do it thoroughly so that it doesn't break fantastically with whenever somebody does something a little bit different, or changes computers or changes networks or who knows what other things, right? So some of those things are updating your plugins, like if you want to introduce a new version, or if not that this has ever happened with a 360works plugin, but if say you roll out a new version and it breaks some stuff and you need to roll it back, so being able to quickly uninstall or downgrade all of your clients, kind of a big deal when you you have some mission critical stuff. And I don't know, say FileMaker suddenly you load up this new plugin and FileMaker itself suddenly crashes and won't reopen. So those have been some difficult scenarios. When you got, I don't know, maybe 500 or 600 clients out there who's just gotten this brand new plugin installed, and now no one's FileMaker will open, and they're all wondering, why it is that you did that to them. So yeah, being able to downgrade quickly is kind of a really big deal. So we've been down a few of those paths, and so that's kind of a real key one there. Being able to register the plugin without having to go around and have each user run through a sort of registration dialogue or anything like that. Figuring out when you need to actually restart FileMaker after you've installed the plugin. That's a pretty simple rule, but it turns out that as you're trying to manage that process in an automated fashion, it gets pretty weird for the user. Like you have to, sometimes you don't need to restart when you've installed. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't want to make the user restart right away. You may want to let them go do other work, but warn them in the right way that things may not quite work right, that kind of thing. So yeah, so that plenty of considerations here. Who should get the plugin, and when? Like, is this a plugin that's so critical that you have to have it as soon as you open the solution? Is it a plugin that costs a lot? So we didn't get one for everybody, for instance, or only the bookkeeper needs the QuickBooks plugin. So we don't want, we need to be able to control who gets the thing, and then obviously if you're, this is unmonitored, right, use of this system. So if you got all your clients logging in, you need the ability to control that stuff. And so we need a solution for saying who gets it, and and when does it get installed, and that kind of thing. So handling errors in plugins is a surprisingly difficult thing to do, because of course every plugin and plugin author out there does this a little differently, and so it makes it kind of difficult to do systematically. So you have to approach that well, with a lot of study, at least the first few times when you get into a new plugin, is understanding how to do error handling and what what to do with the results and that kind of thing. So, and then here's an interesting one. And actually, hey, this may be a real big thing since Jesse's here with us unexpectedly. I don't think you can uninstall a plugin automatically. There's no function for that in FileMaker. There's an install one, but not an uninstall one. You can't disable it via script or anything like that. You have to do it manually. So at the moment, there is this concern that I have no solution for. So I'm kind of putting that out there to the world that there doesn't seem to be a way to handle this. So if you just, you roll out a plugin for the first time and it tanks on you and you just want to stop that, if you don't have anything to downgrade to, there's no recourse. you got to go around and get rid of them one by one on the user's computers, I guess. So uninstallation still stinks.
I'm going to write that down, by the way. I never gave that much thought.
Right. I got to tell you, it didn't occur to me after working with plugins for a long time and building the solution for ourselves. It still didn't occur to me. So now we have a lot of versions of this out there in production, and none of them have an uninstall feature. And it was this presentation that led me to realize that well, that's something that no one seems to be thinking about. So I went off and Googled it.
Of course.
And
one challenge is that a lot of times if a plugin goes bad, it keeps you from opening FileMaker.
Yeah, that's a tough one to combat. For sure.
So you're kind of stuck. But still, if you decided this plugin just isn't worth it and I want to uninstall it from everybody's computer, you can't really do that.
Yeah, so somebody I Googled and I found a post and a couple of responses to someone saying, hey, I'm using this one plugin and it's like it's a big monster of a plugin and it really slows things down when I have it loaded up. Some people were asking, of course, well, what on earth are you doing, But it was kind of a good point because again, we mentioned using Scriptmaster. Scriptmaster is kind of a whopper of a file. It doesn't slow your system down, by the way. I've never noticed that before, but it is, it is a really big file. So there are certainly some circumstances where you wouldn't necessarily want, a few hundred megabytes or however much it is. I don't know if it's that big, but camped out on your computer unnecessarily, right? So you only want this plugin installed when you really need it. Not Scriptmaster. This is theoretical. There seems like there's a reasonable scenario out there somewhere for I'd like to disable this thing so that it doesn't load unless I want it to. So feature requests for FileMaker or something is can I programmatically shut this thing off and then turn it back on when I'm ready again? Not necessarily having to do a reinstall or anything like that. So interesting little tidbit on installation there. So ad hoc implementation. This is kind of like this the user, the user developer of a plugin, somebody who's going to work with a plugin in FileMaker, implement this into a solution to get new features into FileMaker. The approach that I think led us to this end state here, where we are now with the solution for managing this stuff, was this just sort of ad hoc approach, and I really want to highlight kind of the problem with this approach. Of course, if you take a scenario, you say I want to implement HTML email. I want to be able to send out HTML emails in my solution. You kind of got to start down the path of figuring out, well, when do I need to load the plugin, or do I need to install it for everybody? There are kind of a ton of questions that end up coming up, right? And you have to sort of deal with all of them at once. So probably most of us just don't. We just start writing. We go into FileMaker, we start scripting. We don't think about these things ahead of time, so we just kind of dig in and get going so we can kind of, we can get our bearings and start to understand the way this works. So the danger there is these things really pile up fast. So, do I install and start up? This is a feature that only, comes up once in a while. So I don't necessarily want everybody loading up this plugin right away because it's hardly ever going to get used, but it's necessary. Do I have to do the restart we talked about, right? Do I need to install, do a fresh install, or is this an update to an existing plugin? Does every user have to have it, right? Upgrade or downgrade? Am I having to push a version up or kind of retract a version? Only certain users. So I've mentioned a lot of these already, right? You get the idea that but do I have to register it every time? Are these critical? Can the user continue using the solution at all if I don't have this thing installed, for instance? So that pile there, oops, didn't mean to get past there, but that, like I said, these questions pile up when you get started doing development, and really they end up coming back to bite you, because once you've, let's say you've knocked out like one use case in your solution, I've got this, I've got it set up now so that when I send email, it will use the plugin to format an HTML email, and out it goes, and it's beautiful. But then you figure out that you have to address all these other questions about getting the plugin installed every time for all the users out there. So I guess, if you're working in if you're working in a vacuum and your solution is for maybe your very small work group or something like that, you have 2 or 3 people who use the system and they're in the room with you all day, or down the hall really close and that kind of thing. These are annoyances. These are difficult things to deal with as a developer. You can, but they're manageable. You can do it, and you can manage your users' plugins as well. When you got a new plugin update has come out and we have to patch or whatever because it's fixing some issue or whatever. You go over to their computer, you unzip the new file, you plop the plugin in place of the old one, right? But like I mentioned, where we are, and maybe in a couple of other places where we've been, it's a very different story. The scenario is more like, here at Extensitech, we have, like I mentioned, dozens of companies using our solutions out there every day. These lots and lots of people come into work every morning, and they work in all kinds of states, and some of them work not in this country, and they're not nearby, and there's a ton of them, right? So plugin updates, especially like I mentioned, we use ScriptMaster in like everything. So if like a critical update to ScriptMaster goes out, it's all hands on deck to get that thing loaded up and being distributed to everybody. And if without a system like what we built up here, it would basically be impossible. It would take days and days and days to support that rollout. So sort of a massive amount of manpower involved in distributing a new version of a plugin out to our pretty much our entire user base. So it's just untenable, right? Our clients don't want to pay for that, right? We certainly don't want to spend all that time working on it for free. So you can see how that kind of distributed environment where it's you're not nearby, there's too many people to actually do this manually. You've got to come up with another solution for doing this. Another scenario is at a company that I worked at a while back there. I mean, there really were like 800 users in the building, right? So if we needed to update, and this company had an IT team, so there were 5 or 6 people, but hey, if we're going to end up doing a manual plugin patch or update or whatever, it was still like a day's work for this team, that kind of thing. So there was no, when I inherited the solution and moved into that position, there wasn't anything like this out there, and they were using several plugins. So when that happened, it was pretty bad news. The IT team, like went home sick immediately, sort of thing. So, when you've got just sheer quantity of plugins that need to be installed out there, it's like this is a big deal, and that's valid for just one plugin. Right? Both those scenarios are hard work when it's just a single plugin. But I mentioned we use several. We have a couple plugins in pretty much every solution, and we've written some solutions over the years that have had a half a dozen or so, in one file. That in one FileMaker solution. So the idea that you have many plugins across many solutions with lots and lots of users, this problem just really gets out of hand. Like it is completely untenable, basically. Probably it was, it's such a difficult problem that I don't know, Chris, I'm just throwing out there that I don't think we could have supported plugins back, 12 or 15 years ago without tools like this, in the solutions.
No, either the scenario where everybody's in the same room and they can run around and do uninstalls and reinstalls, or we had to manage it. There was no in between.
Yeah. So now what we've done, like I said, what we've managed here is to create some features in our FileMaker solutions that kind of address all these things. They take all those things that I've talked about into consideration. They give us a sort of framework for configuring a plugin, kind of implementation, I guess is probably a good word for it. in a given solution, and then just let's FileMaker do the actual grunt work of moving files around, moving the plugin files on and off the user's computers, and kind of, like I said, kind of addresses that whole thing. So now it's kind of, it's kind of hands off. It's set it and forget it, even for us. So we very occasionally have to manage a plugin update or something like that. It's rarely emergencies based on this, so it's like a new thing comes out, or we have a client that's doing something special, so they need a new version of a plugin. And all we have to do is kind of go in and make a new record in their solution, upload the plugin files, and that's about it, right? It takes about 5 minutes. So, so that's like I said, that's kind of the golden ideal. The thing that we've been working up to here is that that there is a way to handle all this stuff that isn't this gigantic nightmare headache. And like I said, it's really involved kind of putting some serious thought into it, and not doing the thing here where we just sort of tackle it head on and deal with each problem as it comes up by basically hard coding in script steps and registration keys and things like that really are difficult to maintain and hard to track down when you need to change them and things like that. So I think at this point we'll jump over and start taking a look at the demo file. Like I mentioned, it's not really like finished product type thing, but I think it's pretty close, and I want to demonstrate actually deploying the thing tonight here. So you were going off script here, so hopefully all goes well. And can everyone see that okay? I don't know how big my monitor shows up, so if this is pretty tiny for you, I can try to zoom in a bit.
It's not hard for me to see, but...
Okay there. Well, let's see. If I do the 150% thing, does that, let's see. Wonder if that's going to cause me trouble here. Let me pull that out a little bit. Maybe that'll be a little easier to look at there. All right, I had to scroll around a little bit, but that might be better. All right, so this is honestly a very simple file. There really isn't much here. There's a couple of scripts. There's one table. It's just table to hold plugins. So Chris and I had this interesting conversation talking about setting this presentation up, and I think we're talking about how we are kind of inclined to want to get into the nitty-gritty details, to kind of really show you guys how this, how we got here, and talk about all the hard parts, and that is, well, I think still very interesting in and of itself, but maybe we get lost in the weeds too easily that way. So I definitely want to, I want to give an opportunity for anybody who wants to dig into some of the more particular bits to take a look at that. And I have some slides about, about some of the, the strategies and the methods that we use to do some of the logical parts. But I'm going to leave that off, and let's just kind of look at the demo, and I'll show you how it's working, and how we've addressed a few of those use cases, and see what you think about that. So just kind of taking a tour of the screen here. Like I mentioned, it's one table. It's just these plugin records, right? So my table you can see up here is called plugins, and I made up a silly name for it, not knowing Jesse was going to be here. So
it's try the Uber pluginator.
Yeah, try not to judge me too much. So it's just the way I am. I can't help it. All right, so you can see here that I've got ScriptMaster loaded up here. So you need to give your plugin a name. They have their own names, but that's a little bit, that's a little cryptic. I don't want to necessarily have to deal with making sure I have underscores and FMX 64s and everything, right? So I can give it a kind of a human readable name here, right? And I just need to tell FileMaker about this plugin, because there are a few things. I bet I could probably automate a bit more of this, but it's not that hard anyway. So just punch in the version number that you've set up here. I don't want to say installed, right, because we're not installing plugins at this point. But yeah, just put in the version number. We've got a couple of fields here for minimum and maximum versions. So this is kind of like for version control, so that you can tell the system it's okay to upgrade, but don't go beyond a certain version. In other words, so I can put a ceiling on it and say I don't want to upgrade if there are newer versions of this plugin in the system. I want to only deploy a maximum version of whatever. So if somebody already has I don't know. So if somebody starts off with version 2 and, we say, oh, shoot, version 2 has some problems. I want to downgrade to version 1.8 and then set the maximum version there at 1.8. So anybody with version 2 is going to get downgraded. It works the same way for upgrades, that kind of thing.
And this only has to do with when this is the active version that you want on the solution. You're saying that when we install this, we need a version between the minimum and maximum.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that's a good way to say it. It's so whatever.
It's important, of course, to indicate that we need at least this version, and we focus on that a lot. But sometimes our solution may be written that it won't work with versions beyond such and such. That happens when, for instance, they might change the names of functions, for instance, where we're not supporting the new function names that are in this plugin. So if you get beyond version 5, for instance, the functions we've used don't exist anymore. They're called something else. So that can be a big deal, not just upgrading, but downgrading. So if we encounter somebody with version 5, we have to downgrade their version to work with the solution.
Okay. Yes, I think that's a good way to think of it here. Is that, this kind of creates the bookends for the deployment to say that, your user is okay if they're between the minimum and the maximum. In other words, so you can kind of create a situation where there's wiggle room. It's like, upgrade if you, the system will upgrade you if you have to, but if your version is okay, we won't bother you. You can carry on using this, slightly different version than the one that is necessarily, set as the current active version. So you got that flexibility, you've got the ability to kind of, tweak that. You can make it really rigid. You can make it so that, this version must go out, but you've got settings here for doing that. The version function, I think, I want to say something like every plugin must have one of these. And again, maybe Jesse can help us with that, actually. He having built plugins, there does always seem to be one. Right, and there's a couple other ones like how do you get the last error from this plugin? If something went wrong, those are important functions for this process. I need to be able to test the version of the plugin that I'm using, or that I'm trying to either install or upgrade or whatever. And I also need to tell from this plugin what its problem is. Right, so if it has an error, I need to be able to fetch that error. And each of those features involves a function name that's included as part of the plugin. So you're going to record that here. And again, it's just plain text. So you do have to get this right. You have to be able to, you have to go into the plugin and, get it installed as a developer, for instance, for the first time, and make sure you got these names right. Your versions need to be right. So, it's a little bit of administrative setup. We don't turn this stuff over to our client system administrators, really. We pretty much always manage this for them, but this is something that you could technically train. You could train an IT person, someone who's familiar with the concept of updating files and things like that. So it's approachable, but it does have to be right. You can't misspell these things, that kind of thing. And then there's registration settings. So if the registration is required on this plugin, then you're going to need the version. You're going to need the function for registering this plugin also included as part of the plugin. So this one doesn't require, as we mentioned, Scriptmaster is cheap as free, so you don't need to register it. I think there is one in here. We have our email plugin loaded up, and so you can see what that looks like. And so this is a place where you can park your license key information, right? So you can build the whole registration function with registration info right in here into your plugin deployment. Like I said, that's maybe a good word for this, or implementation. So let's see. We have a few settings for like when to do this. When do you use this plugin? When do you, or I should say, when do you want FileMaker to install this plugin for a FileMaker Pro user? The settings we come up with are always, never, and when needed. Never is just so you can, again, just kind of shut it off. You can't get rid of old installations, we mentioned already, but if new users are coming in, you could have a plugin sitting in here in a never state, and the system would just kind of, let it go by. It wouldn't set that up for anybody. So this is just sort of a switch to be able to shut it off, shut this thing off, but still support it in a way. Let's see. Then always is pretty obvious, right? this thing needs to be installed. You're going to get it when you log in. It should be, it should be installed always. And then when needed is a little more subtle, right? This is for instance, like that scenario where, let's say I have a solution again that does email. So we're looking at the email plugin, but not really everybody is sending email out of our system. So maybe there's only 1 or 2 people in the organization who do that. Or maybe they don't do it all that often, that kind of thing. This isn't something that comes up all the time. So the when needed allows you to tell the system to only install this when a user gets ready to try to do something that requires this plugin. So don't do it on startup. Wait until they ask to use the plugin, and then then your system can run them through the process of setting up the plugin at that point only. So that lets you control who gets the plugin and when and that sort of thing, right? So if you're the scenario where only the bookkeeper needs Fmpug's plugin to do their QuickBooks integration, that kind of thing. So you can make that, you could install that as an only when needed setup, and then through your FileMaker interface you can control access to the places and the features that use the plugin. So you could say the bookkeeper with their privilege set is only allowed to get to the place where we do the QuickBooks sync. And so therefore, I'm sure that only the bookkeeper will get this plugin automatically. So, so you see how that's kind of slotting in there to kind of control the distribution of each plugin. All right. I mentioned the last error function. So error trapping settings. We need to know. We need to know how to determine what the error was if something failed. We need to know how the plugin tells us we failed. So if you run a plugin function and it doesn't go right, this failure value comes back in lots of sizes, shapes, and forms in different plugins. So you've got to tell FileMaker here, how does this plugin say something has gone wrong? So it's usually consistent from plugin maker to plugin maker, right? So 360works plugins always say error when they have an error. It's pretty clear. Others give a false, right? Or others give a 0 or a negative number, varying negative numbers, positive numbers, right? So there's a lot of different ways that a plugin function can express that it's failing. You got to put the value in here for something broke. Likewise, a successful result needs a value too. Go ahead, Jesse.
Just jumping in for a second. There's actually there's a lot of really good changes coming in FileMaker 16, and I don't think I think most of this stuff has been covered by Rick Hellman and some of the webinars that he's done, so I don't think I'm violating any NDAs by saying that the plugin API is changing a lot. And one of the things that I'm very happy about is that there is now plugin functions, first of all, can appear as script steps,
yeah,
which is terrific because it's a much more natural way to use a plugin. But just as important, I think, is that now plugins will have a standardized way of reporting errors exactly the same way that FileMaker script steps report errors. So you wouldn't need to call a specific plugin function to get the error number. It would be just like any other script step that failed, and you can just call get last error. And there's another function that's going to be built into FileMaker that you can call to get the detailed message of whatever the last error was. So I think that's going to make this. Because your point is totally, dead on, that there is no standardized third-party way of reporting errors, and that'll make it, I think, a lot more standardized and a lot easier.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's really good news. We have had our hands on pre-release FileMaker 16 for a bit here, but I didn't know about that. So that's awesome news, actually. So this whole section down here is. Can go away soon. Like I said, once you figured out that you needed this and figured out how to deal with it. Like I said, I got some notes on this in my geeky slides about actually doing error trapping and that's error handling and in your scripting about this. There are some this made it hard having to deal with you don't know exactly how a given plugin will express that it's failed. It made for some interesting problems, right? Because like I said, sometimes the result. They would give us a Boolean result, something that would evaluate to false, and there was a great, there's a great temptation to just test that and use a Boolean, kind of evaluation to say, did it work or not? But then since other functions like or other plugins like this one, for instance, don't do that. If I had tested every plugin the same way, this would fail. This would fail that test. This would say, error, and that evaluates to true if you do a Boolean evaluation on it, right? So, obviously, like I said, it's kind of, earned some stripes early on there by having to figure out that, that this is not consistent, and it's, you have to just, like I said, once you figured out how you need to test, this turns out to be pretty manageable, but that upgrade is going to be great because that means we can now just test the same way for everything. I can test my FileMaker errors the same way I test my plugin errors, and life gets quite a bit easier there, I guess. I have some specific slides to that point, that there are points during this process where I must test for FileMaker results. I need to know if FileMaker failed. And then later on, I'm testing plugin functions, and I have to remember specifically there I am testing plugin results, and I have to remember to test the plugin results differently than I do FileMaker results. So it is, it is a bit complicated, and that's great that that's going to get smoothed out of it. So, okay, so kind of rip through the rest of this stuff. The plugin files, pretty obvious, right? There are basically three different kinds that come with the plugins these days. Windows gets two different application architecture versions, 32 and 64-bit, and Mac seems to have been happily 64-bit all along or something like that, so they only have one. So you just got to load your plugins in here, you put in their settings according to what's needed here. Simple place to add notes so you don't forget little things. You notice I've got a little empty cell over here for, this is a portal for other versions, right? So as I add different versions of this, let's say, email plugin here, I'll be able to see from any one of them the other ones that I've loaded into the system, and from any vantage I'll be able to see which one of them is active. So we'll run through installing one here in a minute, or setting a new one up, I should say, and you'll see how that goes here. And I get a little change log just to kind of see who did what, and who's changing things to active when, that kind of thing. We noticed over time that it was often really helpful to know exactly when we activated a specific version, right? So when did we send this one out into production, that kind of thing, and be able to see, be able to know exactly what got affected, So like, for instance, users who used a plugin that worked wrong and scrambled some data up, but we'd be able to tell which data was potentially messed up because we knew exactly when we updated the plugin, that kind of thing. So so the little history field, this is, again, like I said, it just sort of appends here for me so I can keep track of what's what. So yeah, let's talk about kind of deploying this thing, because that's pretty much it. I have 3 records showing here. That's it for data entry anyway, right? When you're setting up a plugin to be loaded into a given solution. So for my demo here, right, for the purpose of this this thing, I'm going to just pretend that I wrote this cool new solution. I'll do new solution. No, not like that. I'll do file, get started. I'll choose a starter solution here, right? So this contacts from FileMaker starter solution. So I wrote this neat contact management solution here, and I'm going to want to install some plugins. I want to set that up so that my users of this solution can get these 3 plugins that I've got set up in my system, and that way I don't have to manage that myself. So I have a couple of scripts that I wrote in the pluginator over here, and basically all you have to do to make this work is call those scripts from your solution. So that handles the getting them installed part. So let me be really clear about that, right? This doesn't like implement your plugins in terms of their inherent functionality, right? It's like running this and having this solution set up your email plugin does not write your scripts that make your email plugin send email, right? You still have to go do that stuff. But what this does is it allows you as sort of an administrator developer of this solution to roll these plugins out to your users, and again, upgrade, downgrade, that kind of stuff without having to do all the dirty work. So so let's kind of crack the hood on my contact management solution here, and we'll see I've got an on first window open here. So let's say in this solution I've got, remember I've got 3 plugins I think I want to be using over here. Script Master, Email, and Super Container Companion. And I've got Script Master is set to always install, so just kind of making a note of what I think ought to happen here. Email is only going to be when needed, and Super container is only when needed. Let's make super container always also, just to make things a little more exciting here at the beginning here. All right, so I've got 2 always plugins set up and 1 when needed. So I'm going to go here in my contact script workspace. I'm going to look at the on first window open, and so I'm saying, as a developer, I'm saying, okay, I know that my contact solution is going to need some script master functions, like, you know, right out of the gate. We use it all the time for all kinds of different things. I want this installed right away. And I've also said, okay, I've got some super container functions that I want to install, or that I'm going to need, you know, right away as well. So I want those 2 plugins for every user who uses the system to get installed as soon as they log in here. So let's see their script, and I haven't spent much time with this file that I very carefully wrote, but I think the get device, yeah, okay, I can see what they're doing here. So their file says if you're a Mac or a Windows, then go to the layout for contact details. If you're iPad, iPhone, Android, etc., do other stuff. Plugins don't work on those platforms, right? So iPad, iPhone, Android. So I think I need to insert my script step right here, and I'm just going to call a script. So perform script. Oh, I need to make a reference. All right, so file, I got to hook up my files here. I forgot that part, right? So manage external data sources, and I want to create a new one. This is on my desktop, but it could be hosted, of course, right? So you could host them on the same server. Here we are in the plugins prezo pluginator. All right, so pluginator is hooked up. These files are wide open administrator access kind of thing right now, but like I said, with a little spit and polish, these could be ready for like real security, real deployment. So I got to file an external data source reference now for my plugin manager here. All right, so now I can go, oops, I want to run a script from the other file. Where'd you go? Anybody see that happen? Manage data sources. I apparently didn't save it. And okay. And okay. There it is. Okay. Nope, no one caught that, not even me. All right, so there we go. So I'm going to run my script from the plugin file here, right? And I want the setup required plugins. If I were going to send this out for wide distribution, I would document these scripts really well. I would make it very clear this is the one you need to run at the beginning. It in turn, the setup required plugins script that I wrote here, in turn calls the update plugin script. The update plugin script is the one that does all the heavy lifting, that figures out, do I need to upgrade, downgrade, register, restart, all that stuff. So this update plugin one is where the magic happens. This guy is just kind of like a wrapper script. It runs update plugins in a loop. And you guys can see that happen here shortly. So we're going to set up required plugins, and that's about all that is for deploying the pluginator here to set up required ones. Okay. And let's see just how good I did. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and make sure that there's nothing showing. Oh yeah, remember this thing I was talking about before? If I go Edit, Preferences, and I look at the Plugins tab, I have no plugins installed. I can go ahead and reveal the plugins folder, that handy button. Thanks again, FileMaker. So here's where this function install plugin file that we're calling it's a script step, I should say, is going to put plugins. So FileMaker tells me this is where I ought to be looking if I'm interested. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up our contact management solution that we've just deployed here, right? So here's contacts on my desktop. Look good? I'm going to open that up, and it's doing stuff. Okay, so didn't that blow your hair back? Pretty lackluster demo there, but let's go look at the folder. And you can see that I got a copy of Script Master and Super Container Companion. Okay, so kind of recapping so far, right? I had my I have my solution open over here, and he's hiding in the background. He's over here. But, I spent the few minutes it took me to, it takes to load up, set up a couple of records here, input a little bit of data, tell the system the rules for when to install it, and then, again, so far the hard part really was in the script, deciding that I want on first window open when I'm loading up a FileMaker Pro client on Windows or Mac to run this script in my pluginator file, right? and it just does the thing, okay? So not a lot of work at this point to have the system install plugins, required plugins to every user who logs into the system, okay? Everybody kind of still with me at this point, hanging on here?
Yeah, I'm checking out the device. I've only had the pleasure of using that a couple of times, but got to get better.
Yeah, that one surprised me as well. I bet we check about 19 other ways to figure out what what that is. So the get device function here, Wayne pointed out, has been lurking. I guess we didn't know it was in there or something, but that's
the application sort of
yeah. I mean, there are some really kooky ones that I can never remember how to spell because they're like 8 words long each.
Yeah, get system host application version.
Yes, that's just the stuff, right? So so this is cool function. But all right, so at this point we're deployed, right? We've got 3 plugins that are in the mix. Now I haven't yet told the system to do anything with the email plugin, right? Remember, because that one is set up to install only when needed. So I haven't told my contact management system yet that I want to use the email plugin. So so I think we can get to that. It's a little more involved, so maybe we'll leave it off for a second. Excuse me. So now let's talk about upgrading, right? So let's say that we get a new version of the plugins that we want to load up, and we want our users to all get those versions. So let's just kind of walk through that process. One of the things that I think will make life easier for us here is that most of the time, these settings don't change for a given plugin when a new version is introduced. So we're going to make use of the duplicate record function in FileMaker, right? So I'm going to say I want a new super container, right? Super containers, Jesse's sent us all an email that says we have a critical update to super container. We need to get this out right away, kind of thing, right? And I did actually go and take a look, by the way, to see that the versions that I was playing with here are actually older than the current version. So I went ahead and took the liberty of downloading these 3 plugins that we're using from the site, and each of them is slightly newer than the ones that we've been working with so far. So you can see super container, I've got version 2.9.4. Back here in Pluginator, I've got 2.9. So clearly an upgrade ready to go here. Okay. So I'll start off by going, all right, now I want to duplicate this record. So dupe record, and it creates a new record. Now, oh, something broke. That's beautiful. It wasn't supposed to do that. That should be inactive. I was about to tell you that necessarily when you create a brand new record in this table, it should not come on as active because the system, meanwhile, users might be logging in, logging out kind of stuff. We want them to be able to keep working, over here with the other version, right? Here's 2.9 over here that is currently still active, that kind of thing. So I got to make sure I clean that up there. When I duplicate a record, I want to make sure my new record isn't active. Okay. Now, I need to do a couple of things to get this going. I just got to edit this because we went up to 2.94, right? And I want to say that no matter what, you need to upgrade to 2.94, right? So I'm telling the system the rules are anybody with less than 2.94 out there needs to update today, okay? So now let's drop in our plugin files and we'll be about done, okay? That's really all the work that you have to do here. I won't be able to update the Mac one, which I think is really annoying, okay? So I've got the 3 plugin files here, the FMX guy. This guy is, I'm just going to overwrite the one I duplicated. Okay, here's the x64 one. And because the .fm plugin file extension for Mac plugins isn't really recognized by Windows, it's actually kind of a bundle of files, again, this is beyond my kin, but as you can see on Windows, I can drill down and look in the contents of a Mac plugin. As such, I can't drop a folder into a container field. So if you want to update your Mac plugins, you just need a Mac to do this part. Okay. So if you have, all right, yeah, Jesse's taken off. So Jesse, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, good night. It was really, really cool stuff. Thanks for the invitation.
You betcha, man.
Thanks for coming, Jesse.
All right. Good night, guys.
Yep. All right. So the like I say, the just kind of sorry, put a pin in that. If you're doing a plugin implementation for Mac users and you're gonna load your Mac plugin, you kind of need a Mac to do that. So we keep one on staff just for that reason. Like I said, I can't load it, but you can imagine what that would be like, right? Drag and drop. So I've updated my versions. The version function's the same. My rules for when to install are the same. All the other settings are the same. So like I said, it's a great use case for the duplicate feature here, right? That just kind of makes it all copy over here, right? Probably would make sense for me to clear out the history here. So make my own notes about this here, so my solution's a little bit more thorough. There's no history in our new version yet. So now that I'm ready to roll here, and I've got version 2.94 up and running, or kind of cleanly set up here, I can activate it. So I've got this set up with some scripting so that the pluginator file will deactivate any other versions of this plugin out there. So you notice at 2.9 over here, he went inactive. And you can actually do it from both angles. So if I wanted to activate 2.9, I could do it from there. So you see how that's kind of flipping back and forth. All right. So I'm making 2.94 active. I can drill down over here. Right now I just want to show you, I can see 2.9, and I'm looking at 2.94 through the portal. Okay. So really pretty simple to introduce an updated version of the plugin here. And so as such, let's close everything down. Let's see. So we're just going to start over. Load up contacts again, and oh man, that's awesome. So FileMaker stopped working. Let's see if that's just a coincidence. Yeah. Nothing like a demo to break stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right. I guess let's kind of see where what the aftermath of that is like. I'm going to have to check and see what version we have here. So if I go to plugins and look at Super Container Companion, yeah, okay. So we got our upgrade. FileMaker did work. I'm not sure where that crashed or why or anything, but typically that would have required a restart. That's one of the things that our script does nicely, is it figures out that you need to restart. And the rules about that are that if you do a fresh install, right? So if in other words, Super Container was never installed on this computer, FileMaker can receive the plugin, load it up, and go right to work. It doesn't need to reboot and reload or anything like that. So actually, on a fresh install, FileMaker can just keep on trucking and start using the plugin functions right away. If you're updating or downdating or whatever, right? FileMaker does need to be restarted though. So the scripting in the update plugin script that I wrote figures out based on all your settings and tests. It can test and see if you've got a plugin there or not. And at the end of the process, once it's updated or downdated or whatever, it'll let you know, hey, you've done an update, you need a restart. And I've done it pretty passively here. Like I said, I think there's some room for interpretation here. There are circumstances where you should not let your users proceed if the plugin got updated and FileMaker needs a restart. So if you were deploying this, you'd want to implement that and say, I've got to shut you down now. Sorry, you got to restart, kind of thing. Okay, so let's see. So you missed a little bit of my my neat scripting there, because of course you would have gotten dialogues that would just done the thing I explained there. But now I think though you get the sort of ease of upgrade there, right? And go show the window. Let's reverse it. Okay, let's go back the other way and say, oh, there was a problem. It made FileMaker crash. Let's go back down to 2.9. And this is key, right? If I look at 2.9, right, that's my new active version. I don't have a maximum version in here. So it's important that if I want to downgrade my users, that I tell the system, you can't have more than 2.9. That's the maximum version. So that anybody who got 2.94 out there, the next time they log in, they'll get downgraded. If I didn't do this and there were no maximum, then it would go, oh, you have greater than 2.9, you're fine, right? So see how that works. Like I said, you can configure this thing to be flexible, or you can make it really tightly locked down and say, yeah, you have to have 2.9. It's the version here, like this. So let's see if we get away with this without a crash now. Okay. Wow, boy, that is sure something. I wish I'd stumbled on that before I tried to demo this, but that's my luck. So there it comes again, and again, just kind of confirming our results here, right? The Super Container Companion is now 2.9. So my scripts are working, my file is doing its job. I've apparently offended FileMaker in some way down there, I'm guessing, but I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but we'll troubleshoot that later. But see how that's working. That's really the key here, is that by kind of setting up this all these preferences over here. Oops, that's the wrong keystroke, so I want to show the window. By setting up all these preferences for my plugin record, I can instruct the solution to do my distribution for me. I can create this situation where I don't have to contact the users. I don't have to get on their computers. I can actively change these versions up and down if I need to. And it's a pretty straightforward, pretty approachable process, right? It's kind of low tech. It's definitely low labor. That's really the key, right? It's like there's next to no work to be done. So like when I was saying before, we get word down the pipe that, I don't know, there's a crazy Java problem that's disrupting FileMaker users who are using Java-based plugins like 360 works. And so they're having all kinds of problems. We need to do an update. So when that happens, we always call Wayne right away and tell him, hey, Wayne, you have to update all the plugins for every single client we have. And yeah, Wayne's sick that day, yeah, every time. But Wayne's job is this, right? All he has to do is go into each of our solutions, right? And then there's a few, but still, go into each of our solutions, introduce a new plugin record like this, make sure the settings are right on each one, and off they go. We just tell the users, shut down, open up again, and you're off and running. So I think I'd like to, at this point, just I think call it a day. Let's talk a little bit about the as needed or when needed scenario, and I think you guys kind of get the point. I think you can probably imagine what that's like. I want to look at a script here in contacts, and it would be a matter of, like, let's see. Let's say that when I create a contact list, yeah, so I'm going to pick one of the scripts that I wrote, or that they wrote in here, right? I'm going to say that, when I create a new contact in list view, I want to make sure that the email plugin is loaded, right? So all there is to that is I need to know the name of the thing. So let me go find him. Come on, or email plugin, he's called. Tough to remember, so I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to say, all right, if I don't exit right away, right, if I'm not in the wrong record open state here, then I want to perform script, and I want to do it from my pluginator file. And this time I don't want to set up required plugins, right? That was the thing at the beginning. This time I just want to update this one plugin, and all I need to do is pass a parameter, and I'm not going to get into this parameter kind of protocol we have here. We've talked a lot about that over the Fmpug episodes, but this is just a thing we use to pass multiple parameters here. But I'm just saying, basically, give the script the name email plugin. All right, so I'm going to tell it to call that one. Oh, that's brilliant. I'm going to forget that I can't do that. More on that later, but let's say if that worked, I just need to tell the system the name of the plugin that I want to install. That's really the key piece there, is I need to pass the script parameter. Tell me the name.
What's the piece?
I'd need to
File.
I'd need to XML that that parameter, Chris. If
You want to do that real quick?
yeah, that would work. That's not too bad, right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So, oops, I just had the script call itself. There we go. Get back to the right file. I want to update plugin. I need to XML. So, how does that go, Chris? Open bracket. Let me give you.
You want to give me keyboard and mouse, and I'll knock it up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Chris's XML to the rescue here. Sorry,
the custom function that he forgot to put in this file just kind of does this for you. But
there we go. Okay, so it should be name and email plugin, Chris. That's what we're after. Spelled out name.
Oh, is it full name?
Mm-hmm.
What is the name? Script master?
Script space master. No, sorry. I'm sorry. That's wrong. It's email space plugin. Just on the left there, you can see it in the background.
All right. Hang on a second. I just realized I'm in a dark room and I'm not on my laptop, so I don't have my flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one, version?
No, you don't need the version there. So it's just the name, right?
Oh, it's just the name?
It really is just the name, right? Because of the settings over on my email plugin record, they tell me which version is the right version, right? This is the active version that it's configured. So all I need to tell my script is which one of the plugins that you're using do you want me to install right now. So again, sorry about the busted demo there, but passing the parameter in of just the name is hopefully pretty approachable, right? So let's see. This should install the email plugin now. We should get version 2.12 when we run the create contact in list view script. Okay, so I'm going to hide my window there again. And let's see if I go, is this list view? Yeah. This is new contact here. You know what, I don't actually know if they've, no, they haven't. Sorry, it occurs to me now that I don't know how they use this script in this file. So there's got to be, no, that's just the navigation. I'm going to run the script manually. So they apparently don't have it hooked up in their demo file. You know, it's hard to get good demos these days. All right, so I'm just going to run this guy. So bang, off it goes. Can't tell
if me, or did that not do much?
Yeah, I can't tell if it did anything, but we'll be able to tell because we'll look in our extensions folder, wherever that it's got to.
I think that is your extensions folder.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, let's debug instead. Okay. And scripts. It's a short script, so I'm brave enough to wade into this here. All right. Yeah, that's why our record at open state. Oh, I see. This must be a.
This is the problem with demo files.
Yeah, right. Let's not get into demo files from FileMaker. All right, here we go. So now it will run the thing that I wanted to run, and I'm just going to close that down. There we go. And there's our results, right? So pretty quick to throw in a call to this file to go ahead and set up the plugin that I need only in this circumstance. So only when a user comes to this point in my solution and decide, and tries to use a feature that uses this. So again, the idea is to try and build in the tool so that it is really just kind of plug and play. You just a couple of simple scripts. You just insert them in the right places into your work, and they will support. Again, this management of the file of the plugins. Again, it doesn't write your scripts. Obviously, you can see here I need this script to do more things. It doesn't do much, right? But
or do it at the right time.
Yeah, you're just doing it at the right time. That's the ticket. So, all right. So, like I said, I think I want to really, like I said, just kind of wrap up the demo there.
What?
And
Excuse me. What happens if you run the pluginator script and there's an error? Do you get back a 0 or something?
yeah, the pluginator script. All right. Yep, we just lost missed Oscar there. Bye, Oscar. You're gone already, but thanks for coming. Let's see. So let's see. Answer your question. Show this file again.
Yeah. Does it come back with a 1 or 0 or something?
Yeah. So
that it could or couldn't install the plugin.
So I've tried to make this a little more verbose, right? That so that it can have understandable results. But the idea is certainly that the different places there are plenty of opportunities for failure in this process. But at each point, right, where if I'm going to install a plugin, I'm going to capture that result, right? If it fails, then I'm going to stop there because, well, that didn't work. I'm going to tell you about it if.
So do we exit with $error?
In this case, we do exit with the word error if we fail to do the actual installation. Okay, and so again, like I said, a little documentation on my scripting would definitely be in order here to kind of tell a developer this is how you find out if things went badly. The setup required plugins, of course, like I said, it calls the update plugin script here. So this is the thing that, this is the feature that will go find every plugin you've told the system to set up that is required, install always. And it does the calling of the update plugin script itself, right? And you can see that it actually tells the system here, don't dialog me during the plugin update script. So if I'm installing 3 or 4 plugins, this actually will this script, the setup required plugin script, will actually build up a list of the results that you've gotten, right? And so that this script will kind of interpret that list. So if you've installed 3 plugins and one of them installed fresh, another one of them updated, and required registration or registered or didn't register, right? All those things may be happening with any given plugin you're installing, and you may be doing a bunch of them in a row. So this wrapper script here kind of stores that up and then checks that set of results to see if, for instance, if you updated, you're going to need to reboot. If you failed, then we need to let you know that something went wrong, that kind of thing there. So those like I said, those are some of the more nitty-gritty details to dealing with this stuff. But we've addressed those questions. What do we do when things go wrong? The script will pass you a result that you can interpret. And it even has error messages. I've kind of set up some or error or confirmation messages so that without a lot of work, you could rely pretty heavily on what's here already. It would tell the user, hey, you've got to restart. You don't have to now, but you'll need to restart to use your plugin, that kind of thing.
I think what's really cool, and I don't know if well, we're down to James and Jason here, but I don't know if it's fully coming across that how easy this makes it for the rest of us to write scripts. Once you set up this plugin, that if I'm going to write a script and I know it's going to need the email plugin in our environment, I just add a step that says, basically, check to see that they've got this plugin or install it if they need to. And if I didn't get an error, move on. If I did get an error, this script isn't going to work. So I run this plugin script, and then if there's no error, I know I'm good. I don't have to check all those other things like did I restart or did I get an error when installing the plugin, or am I on the right version? I don't have to do any of that. I just say, run the plugin script with a parameter of scriptmaster, and if it doesn't come back with an error, I know I have the right version of scriptmaster. And it just makes life so much easier. So, James and Jason, do you guys use plugins a lot? James or Jim, you've been saying that you use some of them, right? You're using a scanner plugin, I think, or you were?
Yeah. when I worked at a small telecommunication in the Fort Lauderdale area, we used Inside Scan. What the management, the owners decided to try and do a paperless office. Inside Scan worked beautiful for it.
Yeah.
Because we could call it directly from FileMaker, you know, without everything was going.
Right. But you can probably remember, I mean, when you're writing a script that's going to use Inside Scan, you had one of two choices, right? You could just assume that they had Inside Scan and the plugin was properly installed, and if they didn't, well, good luck, right? Or you could write some really long sections of your script going, you know, do you have it? Do you have the right version? If you don't,
this was like 7 years ago, so I apologize. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this kind of manages it. So when you're writing a script that uses Inside Scan, you can just say, run the plugin script with the parameter of Inside Scan, and if that went okay, I know everything else is okay. And I don't have to check anything else, and that's the real benefit. So we had limited. It's like we only had like 15 people, 15, 20 people. So those who had scanners was like 3 to 5 people. So it wasn't a, you know what I mean? Those machines were perfectly set up. Right, but even with small groups, we've gotten away with that before. You know, we have a group of like 20 people. And we go, they've all got the plug-in. Everything's good. Until something goes bad, and then you go, you know what? I would work my butt off for a week to make sure this never happens again.
One of my big clients, guys, the one I have, the assume is spelled ask you me.
Yeah.
So I don't do that.
Right.
And I have that. We have that thing, and so if I ask, and it's like nothing's a dumb question, you know what I mean? Or to him to ask me, say I don't understand it. I said that's fine. Even though I worked in the IT world for many years, I actually have a master's in teaching, and if I don't explain it right, then that's my problem, not his.
Right. What about you, Jason? We haven't heard much from you, and I see that you're on here. Do you use plugins a lot?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I went ahead and got the from 360works the full, the full package, and I had a few intentions of installing and setting up. One was HTML email. I didn't get that one completely finished, and then I want to do a calendar sync too to my CRM database. I didn't get that one finished, and then the other one was I'm doing some reports now for upper management, which I think would be great to autofill all of my Excel files with. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities.
So that would be Scribe, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a great use case for this type of solution, is where you've bought the whole package, right? You want to get them all kind of in place, and then as you're writing a script and go, well, this is going to use Scribe. Therefore, at the very beginning, just find out if the user has Scribe. And if not, make sure they've got the right version. And if they don't, just stop the script, because things are going to go horribly wrong from this point forward if the plugin is missing, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, this sort of solution, and I think this is something that since Jason started on this and was going to do a presentation on it, he built this standalone file. I think it's something we're just going to make available and clean up the documentation, figure out, everything goes wrong in a demo, with the crashing and so forth. But it's so useful to just be able to go into a single place and say, well, they should have between this version and this version of this plugin, or else I'm just not going to run this script.
Right. And then the other thing I want to do with the plugins was there's a few APIs out there that are I believe, SOAP-based. Or SOAP, no. It's the one where insert URL, and where you set up you do a handshake, and then you get a password, and you have a user ID, and then you ask back and forth, and it was for the a marketing automation platform called Pardot that Salesforce owns, I got it pretty good, but I just didn't get it to the point where I could actually put it into production.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth mentioning that this sort of strategy where we've kind of worked really hard, and it's something we've tried not to talk about too much. This file right here is the culmination of a lot of learning, right? But the idea is hold what you got, get that one section of your routine to just take care of that, so you never have to think about it again. And the same thing might apply to your SOAP interfaces and so forth. If you can consolidate them and go, this one routine or this one small set of routines or this one small file, this takes care of all of that with a few parameters.
Right.
So that instead of every single script or every single function or whatnot where you have to deal with it, having to rewrite, 10, 12, 15 lines of code to make sure you're doing everything right. The idea is we want to do stuff once and never have to think about it again, because we work very hard to be lazy. So.
Yeah, you're. I think you're. Like Chris said, your case where you have a bunch of plugins at your disposal. The portfolio license from 360works means you get everything they've ever done, kind of thing. And so if you had something like this built up, rather than at each interval when you decide, okay, now that I suddenly have this requirement where I need to, FTP some files to another server or something like that automatically, you can, go grab whichever one of 360works plugins does that these days, and instead of having to start from scratch and write a routine that will not necessarily that would even install it or anything, but do it, handle all the what ifs, right? What if the user doesn't have the right version? What if the user, doesn't,
needs a restart, or has the wrong version, or
right.
Or we tried to install it but we got an error.
Right.
There's so much error trapping to do that properly.
Yeah, and certainly, again, 360works.
You only want to figure that out once. I mean, when you're really excited about rolling out Zulu, nothing will dampen your excitement like trying to make sure that everybody has the right version. That'll really take the wind out of your sails. It's like, man, I spent half a day just trying to do the error trapping so everybody could get this bloody plugin installed. And I've already done that before for another plugin, but what a pain, So we will be refining this, and we'll make this available on our website along with the presentation. So
well, that's great. I really appreciate you guys doing that.
Yeah, and I hope you guys will play with it, and give us some feedback, not just hey, this doesn't work, because more than likely, we're not really selling this, so we'll probably put it out on the site and it'll probably still have bugs, because that's the way this game works, right? Let us know about bugs, but also about, this isn't really intuitive. It took me forever to figure out what to do here. Let us know.
Okay.
What would have been easier? So I don't think we're ever going to turn around and sell this thing, but we certainly like to share it with the community and have it be a useful tool. All right, guys?
As a sidebar, guys, I think my client's going to want to scan directly into it, and I know Inside Scan's no longer, really that good or available.
Did you get those? I did a Google.
Monkey Bread Scan and Troy Grabber. Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you used any of those?
We haven't. The one solution where we do a lot of scanning is actually in a corporate environment. Well, I don't want to say corporate. They're actually they're a medical environment. But their scanner can actually be set to save files with a particular name, and they do mass scanning. So they're scanning 1,000 files at a time, but naming them properly. So our routines in FileMaker just look for a file with a particular name and a particular directory.
So they're scanning.
So we've kind of gone at it in a different way, but the key word for scanning, and I found this out years ago, but I haven't had to use it recently, is Twain. Do a Google for Twain FileMaker plugin. Because
that's what Inside Scan used to use.
Yeah. Twain is the language for communicating between a scanner and an applicator.
Yeah,
I can tell. I don't even know what it stands for.
That product was so great, and I was so perturbed that they didn't upgrade it. But as I said, I think you made the comment as one Italian guy or something like that, right?
Yeah,
it was that. Right?
No, we did. Inside Scan we did for SAI, Chris. Actually, that was one of some early work we did.
Was that them?
We used Inside Scan, but then we tried out the Italian job for.
Inside Scan, I thought that was the Italian one.
It is not. It's a different one. I think this guy supported duplex scanning. We thought, right? Where I think Inside Scan fell down. Right? It would not support a scanner that could scan both sides at once.
It's been several years. You know what I mean? I'm trying to remember the details.
But as it turned out, the Italian guy gave us theoretically, but not so much in reality. So so we haven't heard from him since on that.
That was actually something I was going to bring up when you said how to choose a plugin. From my own experience, watch out for foreign plugins. Not that people outside America can't make plugins as good as us. But I had a terrible experience years ago when we didn't have custom menus. There was a plugin that would do custom menus. It was called Menu Magic.
Yeah.
Out of
Two
France.
for you or something? No, it's not two for you then.
No, it wasn't two for you. They apparently stay up all night and support everybody. Two for you is wonderful. Or 20 for you.
24.
Yeah.
However they do that.
Yeah, those guys are awesome.
Is Monkey Bread out of Germany?
But yeah, they are. But they again have a reputation of staying up all night and just being very supportive. But this company I'd worked with called Menu Magic out of France, you had to catch them during French working hours, and it would really be nice if you would speak French with them, because they didn't seem to care for you if you didn't speak French. Their product was awesome. It really was. But if you took it a little outside the box, and needed a little support, it's like you had to really plan ahead and maybe buy Rosetta Stone. So I think it's become a consideration for me when I'm looking at two plugins and one's in a foreign country and one's here. I'm going to pick the one in a closer time zone that speaks English.
Yeah. The importance of
because support is key.
Yeah, and support. Oof.
If you're not doing something that's dead simple, like it's included in their sample file, you're gonna have to ask questions sooner or later. And having somebody that's in a relatively close time zone and speaks your language that's a benefit.
Yeah, tangible. It's really tangible.
Yeah. I think I spent a week and a half trying to get the answer to one question from those French guys. And that's when I went, okay, from now on. But I have actually met the German guy who wrote Monkey Bread. And also the 24U team. And I've communicated with them and so forth. They're always available. As far as I can tell, they never sleep. And they will answer your call.
That's the old IT person that I was, like I said. I started out as a COBOL programmer, so.
Yeah, these guys are you call them at 1 o'clock in the morning their time, and they will just jump out of bed and help you. I mean, they're amazing folks.
When I used to get my phone calls at 2 in the morning, it was the second call that I had problems going back to sleep.
Right. Yeah. So they're not all like that, but it's something to think about. Do these guys have a reputation? It's one thing to deal with somebody close by who speaks English who may be working out of his basement. There's nothing wrong with that. Heck, most of us started out working in a garage or something, right? Nothing wrong with that. But if you have that and, you know, you're waking them up at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's sometimes just too much. So.
Hey, did you guys do anything with that script logging software with the remote? I forget what it's called on the server, where it logs those on the new server those long calls? I forget what it's called.
Oh, top calls.
Yes.
Yeah, we ended up getting trial by fire on that, actually. We had a server that was crashing frequently, and we couldn't figure out why. And top call logging, well, it turned out to be a tool. I'd like to say that we just looked at it and had an aha moment, but it's tricky. Actually, I think we didn't we do an Fmpug on that?
Yeah, we did. I was just wondering, we talked about maybe moving it along further to build a reporting part of it, but.
Yeah, I guess that was mine. I was trying to remember what my last presentation was today, and that was it. I couldn't remember until now.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, the what we ended up with there is that with the help of you know, like an upper tier FileMaker support analyst, we pored over the logs for several hours together, me and Chris and this kind woman, and eventually we're able to, you know, kind of narrow down the possibilities, you know, to the point where we could make a decision about some things to change in the solution. So, you know, it's still not the kind of smoking gun tool that we would wish for, you know, when it comes to problems that are cropping up and hard to solve. But you know, it got us there. I would, you know, I want to say, now that we kind of know that process, I will say that without having to climb that learning curve, we would get to that point and determine a, you know, a course of action, you know, things to try much more quickly, and without having to disturb the users the way we used to. Because really, the way we used to have to collect data about these situations was to get the users to give us feedback, like detailed feedback, every time the system would fail. And that meant we had to let the system fail like a bunch of times over and over again, and hope, you know, well, almost hope
a pattern emerged.
Yeah, hope that it happened often enough. Yeah, users just really got it.
I will say though that the top call logs and what they report is still a little unknown even to FileMaker support people.
Yeah, yeah, there were several.
We were able to narrow it down in our trial by fire. We were able to narrow it down to a command that said update reference count. And it took us probably a couple of weeks before we finally got a definition from FileMaker. What is that process? Because even though the top call logging was reporting it, the support people didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, no one in the building except for the programmers who write FileMaker.
It's still in Pioneer territory, but it's still useful. I mean, it kind of narrows down the problem where you go, okay, every time it crashes, I see this update reference count. So FileMaker, we have to figure out what this is. Yeah.
Now, did you still have to tie the layout IDs in that report and the script IDs to the SQL schema trick that you guys talked about?
Yeah, that was part of it. Trying to figure out what was the table ID that was talking about. So that's a matter of getting. There's a layout IDs command. This is common, but there's a layout IDs command and a layout names command, but not one that ties the two together. So the fifth item in the layout IDs list goes with the fifth item in the layout names list. You know, so you have to pull both lists and go which one goes with which one.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, Jason, we talked about, you know, potentially having some tools where you could dump the data and get those answers very quickly could really help the process along. You know, if you had had a situation you were trying to get resolved quickly, obviously. But you know, I think we were fortunate in our circumstance. We were able to pretty quickly determine it's this one table, and it's happening pretty much on this one field in this one table, kind of thing. So once we did the math that Chris just described, figured out which table we were talking about, we didn't have to keep after that anymore. So, you know, but you know, certainly I think there's a great opportunity there, you know, and maybe the next trial by fire, when we have a more complex situation and we're going to have to, you know, perhaps look across many tables, maybe we'll work on that solution, right? Where we can dump in the data files and it'll you know, spit out the real table names and stuff for us, so we can tell what we're looking at.
I did attend a session at DevCon, I guess it was year before last, where they had done the top calls. There was a great demo about the top calls, and which, by the way, you can get on the FileMaker forum. But they made a good case for using IDs in the top call, and that was that just because you're the system administrator doesn't mean that you should know the table names and the layout names. It was a security issue.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you could have a situation where there's, you know, the system administrator doesn't actually have access to the particular file that they're hosting, and you don't want to let them know what layout names are and what table names are, because otherwise they can write AppleScript or write a what do you call it, an FMP URL, and it's an attack vector for security. So it's kind of intentionally obscure, which still annoys me, but at least somebody thought about it. You know, it wasn't accidental.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever look at something called Mandro when you're doing your emailing stuff?
Mangrove? Or
yeah. It's whatever the Mandro, which is an ape type of thing.
You know who's done an integration? Yeah, Mandrill. You know who's done a good integration with that, and he's not here tonight, but DocuWorks. Eric Miller with DocuWorks. He's actually done a pretty full integration with Mandrill.
I was looking at that when they moved to when my place, they moved to RDS for running Windows and all the applications underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the old sending things via a Windows machine went out the door. And that's why I sent you a private thing. Do you want to look at the code for sending an email out with something with RDS? And that's when I was looking at Mandrill, and then we started looking at, and we finally looked at doing it completely within FileMaker, adding an attachment, and it had to do with making sure I had the right quotes and things replacing, you know, where the file was being added and all the other crap. It was fun.
Yeah, we run into that sort of thing where we do a lot of passing expressions as parameters and things like that, where we end up quoting things and then specifying that this thing should, boy, how do I explain it? But we end up with nesting. You know? I think Wayne is especially good at this.
If not else.
Especially good at figuring out where the stupid quotes should be.
Yeah, I think
I spent probably many hours on that, and it was all around the place, and it was just a quote, finally figuring that out.
Yeah, those are the worst, when you find out that you've just spent the last hour trying to find out where a semicolon should go.
Effectively, you're right, Chris, that was pretty close to what it is. The other part that we ran into one time is, remember how you said a third-party person writing it who didn't know they're from a hole in the ground?
Mm-hmm.
This guy did food. The thing was named Food Inspection INSP, period.
Yeah.
That is a no-no.
Right.
That was a big no-no when we went to RDS.
Yeah.
And especially within then you have all your links within that, which was even more fun.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I think we've kind of run over our time, our normal time.
Guys,
Yeah, I hope everybody got something good out of this. And Jason, James, and our friends who have left us early.
well, as I said, my thing is I think they want to look into the scanner stuff. So you're giving me some ideas to look, you know, which is important.
Yeah, hope it helps. Hope it helps. Hey,
the Twain part with the inside scan just, you know, like clicked on me pretty good, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Twain is the key word.
Yeah, that was, I remember
that trouble before.
You
try and find scanner FileMaker plugin and you don't find the same ones. For some reason, Twain is the magic word.
Yep, as I said, soon as you said it, it clicked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good.
Because it's been this what 6. I've been semi-retired. I'm 70, and I was 66. So
yeah. Well, next month we should have tentatively scheduled at least is Darren Quick, our area sales rep, should be presenting. He won't say what the topic is, which makes me think I have a good idea what the topic is.
16?
I didn't say that.
What can you say about that without getting your hand slapped, right?
You know what? Right now, I don't know what would get my hand slapped, so I'm not going to say a word. But,
Thank you. Thank you. The same here.
Yeah, I'll just be honest. I haven't even kept track in the last couple of weeks. I know information has been leaking out to the public, but I'm not sure which information. I will say it's exciting. Just keep your eyes peeled. FileMaker 16 is definitely going to be a worthwhile upgrade, at the very least for developers, because it's going to give us a lot of new tools.
Behind-the-scene toys, yep.
Yeah, but I think even for existing FileMaker 15 users, even if you don't upgrade the solution, I think you're going to see a difference. So it's worthwhile. So it is not a trivial update by any means. It's kudos to FileMaker. So, all right, guys. Well,
thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right, you have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yep, thanks everyone.
Bye.